Hi, welcome back. There's a lot of talk about HP inflation in Honkai Star Rail lately, and while I myself am pretty hopeful it's going to stagnate, others think it'll get worse. There's no hard evidence to support either viewpoint really, so at this point in time we really don't know if HP inflation is going to get as bad as the current economy nowadays, or if we're going to survive the great peak PP damage depression and get out of this unscathed with a army that buffs up all our old units to make them able to beat the current content without suffering and spending too much. Anyways, this video isn't exactly going to talk about HP inflation, it's going to talk about a fix. There was one boss they added in Star Rail that was genuinely one of the most fun fights in the game. It was so fun I must have replayed it at least 20 to 30 times, and as someone who, even as a CC, barely plays the game for 30 minutes a day, even during big events, that speaks volumes, so let's talk about it. Before we start, you should like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this in the future, and join the Expression Discord server for a fun community to interact with, all about Star Rail and any other mainstream gacha game really. Today is day 1 of 31 of my December upload streak. Make sure to comment down below any video ideas you'd like to see. Finally, I'm trying to reach 2,500 subs before the end of the year, so I'd really appreciate it if you are part of the journey. Now let's get on to it. So, HP inflation. I know I said we weren't going to talk about it too much, but I need that precious watch time. People say time is money as a metaphor, but in my case it literally is.
I like money!
The easiest route I can take to prove that HP inflation is very much real to naysayers is that less than only 3 updates ago, during the 2.4 MOC cycle, the first half's Kafka boss had only 1.2 million HP. I bet most of you who have a decently built account could zero cycle that boss without even trying. The second half's boss had 998k HP for 2 phases. That is also incredibly easy, incredibly low. Fast forward to the day where the first half's boss was going to have 2 million HP, but they nerfed it down to 1.6 million before it went live, and the second half's boss has 5 million HP. Since this boss is AoE of course and not single target, then it'll definitely have extra HP that would otherwise be lost if you used an AoE damage dealer against it, but if we take Hule instead, who is also a single target boss like the 2.4 second half boss, Hule has 1.44 million HP, nearly 500k more than the 2.4 boss for 2 phases, so nearly 1 million in total. Is it getting out of hand? Absolutely. However, while I do absolutely see it as an issue, as my personal opinion, I don't think it's a bad thing to happen to a game over its life cycle. The problem is that it's happening in Star Rail during its second year of service and at an alarming rate. It all comes down to Super Break being an itty bitty little piece of mechanic that is way too easily accessible for how powerful it is. Feixiao and Acheron, for example, do have an absolutely higher damage ceiling than Super Break, but it has an insanely high damage floor as well, meaning bosses with lower HP will die way too quickly with it. Now, HP inflation isn't really that big of an issue whatsoever for players that follow the meta. I mean, one of my friends has both Rappa and Feixiao, and while we both cleared the MOC, he 100% had an easier time with it than I did because he had the new characters and I didn't. Where HP inflation becomes an issue for some players is when older characters become absolutely unusable. I've made a video about this before, and as I said in it, in my opinion, older characters becoming obsolete after like 3 or 4 years isn't an issue, but again in Star Rail, it's happening barely into its second year of service. Sealer mains have to resort to E2 Sparkle and E2 Robin to get any semi-decent numbers that keep her competitive in the current meta. Never mind that none of the current MOC cycles or levels, whether from MOC 7 to 12, are at all good matchups for her when she can at least prove worthy of the couple of thousand GG spent on her back during 1.0. Now honestly, the only DPS characters I can think of that are truly obsolete and useless in today's meta are Blade, Seela, and Argenti. When we talk about hypercarry units like Jingliu and Danheng IL, and much older units like Jing Yuan, then Sunday is coming out who is going to revive them for maybe one single update. As soon as Remembrance comes out, these new characters are going to act like if Hypercarry and FUA had a love child. Basically, Remembrance teams are going to do Hypercarry DPS damage every single turn and between turns as well, especially with Sunday. Take your normal Feixiao's team's amount of attacks, scale it down to like 75%, make each attack do like 300k damage, and there you have your casual Remembrance team damage. Probably. So Hypercarry is no doubt going to become obsolete again, unless Remembrance is a lot weaker than we expect it to be. I don't expect units like Aglaia and Castories to absolutely outperform Acheron and Feixiao, but they're just going to provide another way to do lots of damage, which means that in the devs' eyes, HP numbers need to be higher. However, that is just an easy solution to a much bigger problem. It's like putting a band-aid on a broken leg, so how do we fix it? Well, I talked about a boss fight that was incredibly fun at the start of this video, Here are 4 options on the screen. Post your answer in the comments below. If you guess right, you win an iPhone 17. Answer is Aventurine, during the 2.5 Apocalyptic Shadow rotation. Now, Aventurine in the MOC has to be one of the most god-awful enemies out there. Shit tons of CC, reduces your energy, is only single-targeted, doesn't even have wind weakness, has gambling in his kit though, which is either the most fun thing or f***s your whole run, and god forbid the character he locks in his first phase only has single-target attacks. However, in the Apocalyptic Shadow, they give him the most fun mechanic ever. Instead of just having the typical destroy the things on the side, then you get to kill it mechanic, instead he has a destroy the things on the side in order, then you get to kill it mechanic. Yay, so different. Jokes aside, this has got to be one of the best boss mechanic designs in all of Star Rail, and definitely better than any Genshin boss. Don't mind me, just throwing some insults at Genshin because it's a shit game. So, you'd have to destroy the dice to add up a score to match the one on the leaderboard. And once you get it, you can start breaking the boss to kill him. Sounds very simple. But the way they made it is incredibly fun. Instead of locking you behind one dice that you have to destroy every turn or making you wait for him to summon new die, after each dice you destroy, a new one spawns and each one has a higher number than the one before, and after each die you destroy, he also takes a little bit of damage. And again, they don't lock you to a certain one you have to destroy, so it's not annoying. You can destroy the dice with the higher number before the lower number one if you have high enough damage. They don't punish you for it, even if they give it something like 80% resistance. Of course, they unlock the higher number die as you gain score through the lower number die. After clearing the first phase, it becomes even more fun. They introduce a die that doubles the points you currently have on the scoreboard. This makes things even better because if you're able to destroy the really high number dice that spawns as soon as the second phase starts, you can instantly look for the 2x dice that shoots your score up a ton. Now, I've definitely done a terrible job of explaining it, but when put together, this whole boss kit accomplishes a few things. First of all, it gives you a clear choice. Go for the lower risk, lower reward dice, which can be easily destroyed, but if your characters are well built and buffed enough, could instead waste a turn you could have used on the higher risk, higher reward one. It has higher resistance, but gives you a higher score. And when you reach the second phase, you're able to double up the insanely high score you've received from the previous high scored die. The other thing it accomplishes is breaking free from the typical, just destroy the things on the side, then you can destroy the boss mechanic which every other Apocalyptic Shadow boss seems to have. And finally, it allows a way to prolong fights and make them more engaging to even E6 S5 whales without having to absolutely inflate numbers up to the tens of millions. Just means that devs have to be a little more creative when designing boss kits now. Here's a few examples of what they can do. Give Kafka a little more complicated Spirit Whisper mechanic, instead of just making it action locked to make it so that you have to destroy a couple things on the side in the next 4 ally turns or you get dominated. Allow destroying these to also reduce her HP and toughness a bunch, and by giving these hypothetical side objects a set percentage of HP they reduce from Kafka, this can allow characters like Zila, assuming they have the right weaknesses or you have Silverwolf, not only a chance to proc her resurgence but also to reduce the boss's HP for a bunch in a way that doesn't absolutely have to be dealing her own garbage damage. Another example is for someone like Hule, killing the enemies on the side also reduces HP. Honestly, I haven't fought Hule too much, so I don't know if they actually do, I'm just assuming they don't. I do know that he spawns them in, then consumes them later, so it would make sense that destroying them would at least reduce his defense or his HP. There's already an elite in the game, the big fat ice robot, that has that mechanic. If you kill the small ice guards it spawns before it gets a chance to consume them, it has its own def reduced by a whole bunch, which is an insanely good mechanic. It rewards characters like Zila and Blade, who thrive in multi-target scenarios with smaller HP pools. Now, of course, I'm not just trying to cater to Zila and Blade, it's just that the good boss kit designs I have in mind also tend to cater to every single unit out there because that's what a good boss would do. It has at least somewhat of a decent matchup against every single available unit. The only thing that is different is the unit's damage multipliers in a game like Star Rail. One boss they have done well in my opinion is the puppets. They don't have an egregiously high HP pool for a multi-target boss, and they also have a way to lower their HP by a set amount. If you destroy all their weaknesses simultaneously, then they have their action value sent to oblivion until the next phase, as well as receiving a set amount of damage that makes them much easier to kill. Another really good boss is the Pet Death Boss. I'm really not bothered to learn its whole ass name. If you finesse it to trap the right characters, then as soon as they're trapped and you're able to free them, not only does it heal them if they have low HP, but it also gives them max energy, which means you can do much more damage more quickly. This is also one of the best mechanics in the game. This proves they are able to make insanely fun mechanics like this, they just don't for whatever reason. One final example I have in mind is making Svarog have a further weakness to something like DOT. He already has lightning and wind weaknesses, but the dots that currently exist in the game are pretty weak without a buffer. Another enemy is already in the game, the Soulglad Gorilla, spawns in Soulglad dogs that explode and apply bleed onto adjacent targets, and that bleed is insanely powerful, usually dealing hundreds of thousands of damage. Svarog spawns his own side enemies, his big old hands, but destroying them only has one purpose, which is to not get one of your allies locked up. Instead, destroying them can apply a shocked effect with a large multiplier on Svarog, which also makes lore sense since he gets short-circuited or malfunctions when one of the hands are destroyed. See, I'm even thinking of the lore. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think. If you have any other unique boss mechanics you'd like to see that would hinder HP inflation, make sure to talk about them down below. So like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this in the future. Join the Expressway Discord server for a community filled with gacha content. Don't forget to be a part of the 2,500 sub goal. I'd really appreciate it. Anyways, I will see you next time.